Good evening. Today I'm going to be taking you through my top 5 tips for assembling better Ork boys. Okay, tip number 1. Now this isn't going to be news to any experienced Ork player, but most of the 40k Ork kits are compatible with each other, certainly the infantry. So what you find, I'm just going to bring in, this is part of the stormboyz kit, and what you find is that the arms for the stormboyz are all compatible with your basic Ork kit. They have the same joint, they fit onto the same bodies, so you can use bits from the stormboyz kit, and you can use that in the boyz kit. The other thing that you can look at, if you can get hold of it, is the old Warhammer Fantasy Ork line. These kits were compatible with 40k Orks. So here I have some bits from the last time that I got one of these kits. Unfortunately they're out of print at the moment, so you can't get these bits anymore, but you may have to look tracking them down on eBay. They were called the Ork boyz kit, and there's also the Ork boyz kit, which is very useful. And what you find is that you get lots of spear arms, which are always useful. You can have things like explosives on the end of them, or just give them spears. Why can't Ork boyz have spears? Why not? You also get some unique choppers that you don't see in the basic boyz kits. But it's also really useful for snakebite players, because the Warhammer Orks do look very low-tech, and they'd fit right in with a snakebite army. The other kit that you can use, that I highly recommend if you can get hold of it, is the old boyz kit. So here's a couple of the sprues. Obviously I have to use some of the bits, but what you find is there's a perfect chopper that would fit in with 40k Orks. For example, there's another chopper there. These arms here aren't very useful just because the joints don't really fit. But then you look at one of the other sprues, and there are some fantastic Ork heads that you can use as well. There's some arms here, but again the joints to the body are different to the 40k Ork boy kit. You can use them, but you do need a bit of green stuff to get them to attach properly. But the heads, the choppers, they're all perfectly usable. So that's the first tip, is to use other kits, and don't just look at the 40k Ork line, but look at the old Warhammer Fantasy line. Tip number 2. Build better poses. I'm going to point out a couple of things that really annoy me every time I see it, and it's poses like this where the arms are just thrown up backwards. That doesn't look natural. Here's another one where, oh, that's a hell of a recoil you've got there, Mr. Ork boy. Completely unnatural. It just doesn't look good. So keep the arms fairly low. You can put them up a little bit here and there, but the basic arms that you get on the boyz sprue, they're not really built for having them swinging from on high, making a big chopping motion. That's not what these arms are built for. Now we can do some work on that, which I'm going to be covering for tip number 5. But just out of the box, don't build these poses. These look terrible. Stick to something a little more conservative. Think of a big, overgrown green gorilla coming towards you. He's not going to have his arm put up like that. And in fact, I want to do a little test right now. I want you to take 5 seconds right now and try and replicate this pose with the arm thrown up like that. So your time starts now. Couldn't do it, could you? Because it's not natural. Your shoulder just doesn't work like that. And yes, they're aliens, but it still looks unnatural, so don't do that. Okay, tip number 3. Now, the Ork boyz kit has a ball and socket joint at the waist. Use it. Most of the time, was going to say a lot of times, but actually it's most of the time, I see people just putting the bodies just straight, vertical, like that. That's fine, that looks good, that looks fine. But consider, dun 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 dun, twisting the body ever so slightly. Doesn't have to be much, but what it does is it makes the pose much more aggressive. And that's not quite stuck. All it takes is just twisting the body ever so slightly, and it really looks like this guy here is barreling into some humies to give him a taste of his chopper. And just twisting the body ever so slightly makes a world of difference in terms of how aggressive the orc looks. You don't do this on every boy, but on some of them, that's great. Like with the arms though, you can take it too far. So don't take it too far. To give you a couple of examples, here are some boys. I've reposed the arms slightly, but this guy here has had his body twisted ever so slightly. And he just looks so much more aggressive than the guy on the right here, whose body is just vertical. Now, having both in your army, that's fine, but this guy, I think he just looks more fighty, more aggressive. Twist the body ever so slightly. Tip number 4. Use third-party bits. Now, after Space Marines, Orks probably have the widest range of third-party resin bits, and they're fully compatible with the Games Workshop Ork kit. For example, you may have seen in the previous tip that I have some strange heads on my boys. The reason for that is that I use third-party heads. Specifically, I use ones from Spellcrow. There's lots of them bundled into one of their packets, but they have a massive range of really, really nice orc bits. Fantastic detail, really well done. And yeah, fully compatible with the Games Workshop kits. Is that a different sprue or the same one? It's a slightly different one. But again, really nice, really high quality bits for orcs. And it doesn't just stop at heads. Here I've got some bits that I've got from Cromlech. So I got their shooters, which has got loads of new shooters. I think they call them bullet spitters, but new shooters, fully compatible with orcs. They fit perfectly to replace the plastic shooters that you get in the boys kit. Really high quality, really nicely detailed, great stuff, and that just brings a bit more variety to your boys using these bits. Really recommended. I've also got some choppers from them as well, so these can go on my next batch of Slugger boys. Really nice one there. I really like that one. I think that one's my favourite out of the set. Another example is some running legs. These are from Spellcrow. Now those really help you make some dynamic orcs, don't they? And they come with 3 of them on the sprue. They come in resin, so you do need super glue for these. But look at that. Great stuff. And they have the ball and socket joints for the waist. So the orc torsos just fit in those perfectly. Now, if you're playing Games Workshop stores or in Games Workshop tournaments, you will run into some problems using third-party bits. So you do have to weigh that up. For me personally, I'm not going to be playing in Games Workshop tournaments. I'm not going to be playing in Games Workshop stores, so that doesn't bother me. The other thing to consider with the orc heads is that they're almost a different species to the current plastic orcs. If I can just get some examples. So if I hold those up there, and these up here, they look quite different. Not quite the same species, really. So some people do mix and match within their army. I don't personally like doing that, so I kind of feel that if you're going to start using third-party heads, then you should really use them for the entire army. And that's a decision that you have to make pretty much from the start. But I've gone with that, and I use those heads on all of my orcs. And, oh, there's some more examples. I've got some tank busters I've been working on. Again, third-party head on this knob as well. It's just slightly darker resin on that one. And then I also got some rockets from Cromlech, just to build a bit of variety into my rocket launchers. So that's tip number 4, use third-party bits. Okay, tip number 5. This comes back to what I was saying earlier about poses like this one where the arm's thrown up. It's meant to look like the orc swinging, but it just looks horrible and unnatural. This looks bad. These guys, I've reposed the arms. So here is the arm that I used. Normally it would be flat against the body, but instead I've reposed it so that it's... On this one looks like he's just holding it up slightly, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this boy, where I've used the rest of the principles I've been talking about here. I'm going to use this boy and I'm going to have him swinging the arm, or swinging that axe over his head. Now, it's a very easy conversion to do. What you want to do is just sort of figure out the rough sort of angle that you want in the arm to sit at. That will do. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut part of the shoulder off. So I just want to look at the angle there and figure out just rough ballpark where I'm going to make this cut. And what I'm going to do is, it's difficult to do this when I'm looking through the camera, I'm going to cut right about there. And I'm going to make a straight incision like that. And I've just cut the back end off slightly. Probably going to trim a little bit more off in a second. But if I stick him on there, that sits flat at the back of the arm there. And it's swinging in a much more natural position than... Where's he gone? This guy was. Look at the difference with that between those two models. This one just looks much better with that pose. And what you can do with the so what you do is just stick this to the arm there, or the shoulder there, and the bit that you sliced off, which I've just lost. Yep, I've lost that bit. I was going to say you can use that to plug the gap. I've actually lost that bit. Where did I'm going to watch the video back. I'm going to see where it went. I've put it somewhere, and now I've lost it, and now I'm sad. But that's not the end of the world. Does it show it in here? Yeah, so if we look at this one closely, you can see where I've made the cut under the shoulder. And you can see where I flipped the bit that I cut off round and stuck it under the shoulder to fill it in there. But if you lose the bit, or it doesn't fill that gap, which I don't think that bit was going to do, that's not the end of the world. What you can do is use some green stuff and fill the gap in that way. So that's what I'm going to do. Right, now this is not the best green stuff ever. I'm just throwing some in there and smoothing out slightly. I'll do another pass of it in a second. just to tidy up a little bit. But what you can do is, if you have shoulders like that where the green stuff is a bit messy or the join doesn't quite work properly, all you do is go back to your boyz sprue, get one of these shoulder plates and cover it up. Do the Orky thing. I'm just going to use super glue for this one. I don't normally use it on plastic minis, but because there's green stuff there, I'm going to use super glue. And all I'm going to do is stick that over the joint, so it's not as obvious from above. And what I've got there is a really nice dynamic boy. If you compare that to something like that, that is a world of difference. Okay, well, I hope you found at least some of that useful. I know a lot of that information was not news to existing Ork players, but for new Ork players, I hope that gives you some insight into what's available and how you can improve your basic boy. And this is the example where I've used the different things that I've talked about. I've used third-party bits, I've used some running legs and a head from Spellcrow. I've angled the body slightly, taking advantage of that ball and socket joint, and then rather than just having the arm flinging up unnaturally, I cut it slightly at the shoulder, which allowed me to repose it into a much more aggressive looking swinging arm. Cool. Well, thanks for watching, guys. If you like the video, like it. If you want, it's up to you. Subscribe, that'd be nice, that'd be cool. And leave me some comments in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, guys.